Hey there, good morning. I'm almost ready to plow back into Ephesians, but I still want to speak a little more to some things. Uh, and I think I'm going to call this one resting and contending, because I need to clear up some misconceptions about rest, uh, and also talk about defense and confirmation of the gospel. Um, and maybe not in that order. The you know, it looks like. See, if you think that uh, when Paul defended his ministry, people assumed he was defending himself and trying to justify himself. And he said, "Look, no, we're not like those who are commending themselves and comparing themselves. We're not doing this for our own vindication. Our rest is that I know I'm accepted in the beloved and accepted of God, and I really don't give a rat's ass what you think of me." That gives me the freedom to operate in my calling without always looking over my shoulder, worried about whether I offended this person or that person. You can't get to my conscience anymore. See, when I didn't have rest, when I was in the institutional religion, how that manifested was I was always in dead works, always feeling like by seeing what I saw in the Word, if I were to speak to it, I would be maybe not walking in love, or I'm in rebellion, or I am divisive because I'm going against the flow, and these good people of God, they believe differently, and who am I to say? And so you keep your mouth shut and you don't speak the truth. Or when you do speak the truth and you find yourself at odds with the pastor or with the people of God, so to speak, and you find yourself in trouble, then because you're not perfected in your conscience and you don't have rest, you shut down. I shut down Bible studies when I got in trouble at church, and I shut down and didn't keep speaking the truth, and apologized when I should have kept pressing on. I remember I had this Bible study that had been going on for like a year and a half, and to whatever measure we had, people were actually growing in the Lord. And then somebody came in and accused us of speaking against the authority. I believed the accusation. I thought, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I was. Maybe I need to check my heart. Because the pastor believed it, and he accused me, and he called me into his office and had a meeting with me, and I felt so bad, and so I shut the Bible study down. That meant I shut down all the food for, there was no other Bible study that any of those people were going to, and I know they were actually getting fed. So because I had no rest in my conscience, I stopped speaking and resorted to trying to please the pastor and submit, and So rest is not doing something. Rest is, when we talk about rest, we're talking about the freedom to serve the living God. When Hebrews talks about rest, it is rest from dead works, which are triggered from an evil conscience that accuses you before God. And all the dead works do is keep you in the realm of religious service, trying to please men and satisfy your conscience, which is always going to line you up to shut your mouth for the gospel. Because the devil uses religion to shut down the gospel through guilt and condemnation and accusations and fear. Whereas if you are bold before God in your conscience, and you know what you're speaking is, you know what you believe is true, and you know you're accepted of Him, then you're free to speak. And you'll keep going and keep speaking. So the enemy has always tried to shut people down with accusations of a personal nature, to slander their character, and to try to get them to shut up, and if they're weak in their conscience. See, a lot of people start in ministry. Was it James who said that? Or was it Paul? Maybe it was James. He said, no, it was Paul. He said, an elder shouldn't be a new believer, a new convert, lest he fall into the condemnation of the devil. What does that mean? Well, it's because their conscience isn't perfected, and the devil can come along and accuse them quite easily. They may be strong in the word and full of knowledge of the doctrine of Christ, but not be perfected enough so when the attack actually comes, hard and heavy, they collapse under the weight and quit their ministry. And we see that all the time with people that start out with a YouTube channel, and after 6 messages, they get all kinds of trolls and accusations. Somebody misunderstands their message, gets their feelings hurt, and now they feel guilty, and they're afraid they've stumbled someone, and they're going to be responsible for someone losing their salvation or whatever. The devil tells them all kinds of things. They take their channel down. They're not ready for ministry. If you see someone taking their channel down out of offense, it's because they're not ready for ministry. They don't know about the flesh. They don't know about spiritual warfare. They don't know what rest is. Their conscience is not satisfied. I'm talking about the ones that get offended, It doesn't mean that they're not good, upstanding brothers, and they just weren't ready. I've always said, I'm glad I didn't have a YouTube available to me when I was a young Christian. I would have been a mess, and it would have been public. Well, all my messes were public anyway, so who cares? But how do I stand here and keep going? It's a wreck out there. Like I said, this is the marketplace, and it's a place of riots. It ain't a sweet fellowship out on YouTube. I mean, there's sweet fellowship happening, but there's also riots everywhere. So when I do these things about defending and confirming the gospel, it looks like I'm defending myself. I did a post about the writing, right? And I just did the calculation. Conservative estimate, 500 hours. I'd have to work 12 weeks at Taco Bell for $11.50 an hour to make that into a minimum wage. In order for that to calculate minimum wage, I'd have to sell 370 books. I've sold 14. Mathematically, I'm making a couple cents an hour. Why did I do that? Was I trying to get you to feel sorry for me? And was I getting my feelings hurt because somebody made an accusation about me, about my books? No. And then when I did a community post yesterday about, what we teach about the new covenant, and that, look, people are saying that we're teaching that it's a primary issue, and that if you don't adhere to this belief, you're a Judaizer and a terror. Was I just getting my feelings hurt? Was I upset that T. Renshaw or somebody spoke bad about me? They've been speaking bad about us from the beginning. I've had people doing videos about me for years. Have you ever seen me get on here and cry about it? I've seen people with channels of 40,000 people cry because it's an act, to garner the sympathy, so that you would sympathize over, and they would use the example of a channel that's got maybe 400 subs. Say, I was viciously attacked by this person. Come on. What are you doing here? This is war. We and I've taught on that. We are on a battlefield. We're supposed to have our armor on. We're not at a picnic. people come here expecting that we're at a family picnic, and they get freaked out because, well, these people aren't loving me the way they should. And and we're talking about people who've had their channels for years and have thousands of subs. You see them on people's walls moaning and saying, I'm going to take my channel down. These people don't love at all. Can you imagine MacArthur, General Patton, getting out on the battlefield and saying, whoa, these Germans don't love me the way I should be loved. I'm going home. No, we are at war. Okay, so I'm kind of being funny, but I'm not here defending myself in the flesh, trying to garner anybody's sympathy. And if you believe that, it's because that's what you would do. And that's fine, I used to think that way. I go, wow, that poor guy, And sometimes I'll get and I do get the comments, oh, we really feel for you. And I'll say thank you, because what are you going to say? Of course, I appreciate your encouragement. I'm not going to just, give you a thumbs down. I do appreciate the encouragement. I appreciate anyone's heart who is with me, We're human. But that's not my point. I'm here because I have a ministry. And there's something I was saying that, whether you believe it's false or true, and I'm speaking to the people, honestly, that I believe you agree with it. I don't care what the people who don't agree with it and think I'm a false teacher. I don't care what you think. That's not my audience right now. I'm speaking in-house. I am speaking to you saying, I have a ministry that I believe is genuine food. And I believe it's from the Lord himself. And it's the Word of God. It's the Word of life. And I want it to go out. I know God has set my boundaries. And he's limited me to a certain field of operation, and I can't go beyond my measure. But within the field he's given me, I want to be faithful. And I want to see it effective. And I get emails and comments from people who their whole Christian life have never tasted the real food. And they're suddenly tasting it. And it's setting them free. And you can see the effects. And they can testify the effects. And I know the effects because I've had it in my own life. And you can see their conscience getting perfected. You can see the word working. And it's so satisfying. I can't think of another more satisfying endeavor. Well, a lot of these people, just as they start, they're new, Well, they're hearing all these different accusations from without and within. Okay, there's people who use our language and pretend to be one of us, who work within to disaffect subtly people's opinions. Okay? And I can't just come right out and expose them. They're operating in kind of a manipulative, I would call it witchcraft way. There's a spirit. And so I can see all this, I can see this stuff happening. And there's so many times when someone comes onto my channel and they're feeding and they're actually getting fed. And then they stumble across, because people watch YouTube, and my name will come up, and they just got introduced to my ministry, and maybe it's too good to be true or something like that. There's always suspicion because we've been hijacked so many times by so many wolves. And then they hear he's just out making money for books. And a lot of the people saying that stuff are people who used to endorse my ministry and were disaffected at some point by another wolf. So the enemy work. This is real spiritual warfare, and the only weapon we have is the truth. So we have to diffuse these things. We can't just let it be and say, well, I don't need to justify myself. That's true. I don't need to justify myself for my sake. But, in Galatians, Paul said, not even Titus was compelled to be circumcised, or they tried to compel Titus to be circumcised, to whom we yielded in subjection, not even for 1 hour, that the truth of the gospel might remain with you. And what he's talking about is the Acts 15 conference, and if you go back and read that, it says there was much disputation. And what it's talking about is Peter and Paul stood up to the elders and the church at Jerusalem, the thousands of them, of the members of the church of Jerusalem, who all believed in Jesus but were zealous for the law. And they stood up in that atmosphere against the traditions and spoke the truth of the gospel. Why? For their sake? Were they just justifying themselves? No, they were contending for the truth that it might remain with you, with the saints. That's their concern, not for themselves. And does that mean they weren't resting? See, there's people that are giving you the idea that there's no rest if people are contending for the truth. And it's a tactic from the enemy, whether they know it or not, to quench what's going on right in the time when there's like a lot of effective stuff going on. Colleen Be Still and Know has a channel where I talk to her quite a bit, and sometimes I do think, wow, you responded to that. You responded to that. I don't know if I would have done that. I don't know why you keep watching some of those channels, But then she will do a response video, which I don't have the grace to do that. I've been told not to. Okay? The leading for me is not the leading for her. She responds to these things with teachings that have been instrumental in clarifying things in Galatians for people who wouldn't listen to me. Were not listening to me. And you can see the same kind of things happening. You look at her wall. You can see, I was talking to Petra about this. She's like, you look at her wall and you can see people getting free. That's what you look for. You see, are people getting free? Like where they actually say, from this message, I can see this point and this point. And they articulate the truth to where you go, okay, I can see they got it. If you see people getting the truth, getting clearer on the truth after they've heard a message than before it, then praise God. Okay? We don't want to be judges of evil with evil motives, evil surmisings, where you think you know the motives of someone else's heart. That person's in the flesh. They're just, no. And that's happening in the camp. That's not happening out there. These accusations are in-house. It's like, well, do you address it? You don't want to blow it up because it's in the fellowship. But at the same time, we need to make sure we're not misquoting these verses, okay? The verse that says, to whom we yielded not even for 1 hour, that the truth of the gospel may remain with you, says exactly that. It does not say, we did not debate for even an hour. And resting does not mean I don't contend for the gospel, and I don't debate for an hour, and I don't answer any of these charges. Paul answered the charges. In all of Corinthians, if you read Corinthians, he is full of answers to all the charges and accusations He did not just say, well, let them believe what they want. You know, God knows everything, and if they're going to believe that, then that's on them. No, we are here for the defense and confirmation of the gospel. Paul said in Philippi, he said, I know that God's going to finish the work he began in you, even if it's meet for me to think this, because I have you in my heart, since both in my bonds and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel, you are fellow partakers with me of my grace. Right? And he said, look, I know this will turn out to good. And he says, my bonds are manifested as being in Christ in everywhere. So that the Praetorian Guard, they know, that this is not, they know it's about the gospel now. And he says, and the brethren have become bold to speak the truth. And he says, some preach even out of contention, selfishly ambitious, thinking to add affliction to my bonds. Others do it out of love, knowing that I'm set for the defense of the gospel. And I used to think that meant, and then he says, nevertheless, I rejoice because Christ is being preached. And I've heard it said, and I used to think it means that he rejoiced even though false gospels were being preached. No, now I've been around enough to know that genuine believers who even have the true knowledge of the truth can operate out of jealousy and selfish ambition to add afflictions to a minister that they don't like for whatever reason and undermine him while speaking the truth. It's amazing what we can do in the flesh, If we walk according to the flesh, we can do that stuff. And that was happening. But he was rejoicing because even in that, the word was getting out. See, there's people now who, they are so deeply invested in the truth that they'd have to repudiate the whole thing in order to come out publicly and accuse me. So they have to do all their, they may not like me, but they have to do all their negative stuff subtly in the background, through inference and, innuendo, because they know the truth. And I do praise God for that. And for whatever God is using of that, fine. And I try to let it be. But if there's a concept that's starting to build up, sometimes I'll address that, But rest. I did a video, 2 years ago. The more I rest, the more I work. Because people were saying that by teaching about rest, we were just being lazy. And it wasn't because I was getting my feelings hurt that they were saying that, and I felt the need to justify myself. I was over that before I started my YouTube channel. If you haven't cleared that up before you start a ministry, you're not ready for ministry. You don't even know how to walk in the Spirit yet. And I'm not saying we don't sometimes get our feelings hurt and stuff like that, but we know how to solve it. Rest is not, I'm permanently at rest. Rest is every day. I know where my rest is and I know how to come forward. Sometimes I'll go silent. You won't see me on YouTube for a week. Sometimes the stuff gets to me. And I try not to operate from that position, But there's no way I could have stayed on here this long if I was just having a pity party and fighting to defend myself and my honor and my name and my reputation and all that. Trying to get you to like me. No way. But I do have the grace to defend and confirm the gospel, right? But rest, I did this video, the more I rest, the more I work. It's because rest is not doing something. It is a graveyard in the sense that we go into the tomb. But in the tomb, there's a resurrected Christ. That tomb is the holiest. And yes, we cease from our works in the sense that Adam dies. and the old man and his dead works that come from the restless need to justify ourselves and know that we're satisfying to God, all that is solved. And we're at peace with God. And we're on the altar. And then we may or may not do something. But whatever we do comes from a heart that is full of the acknowledgement of who Christ is. And that acknowledgement is the gospel. And that gospel is the risen Christ. It is the power of the risen Christ. And the more absorbed you are with the gospel, the more you'll have to speak or write or testify or contend or defend or confirm. And you know what? When you do, it's extremely messy, because he sends you back out into the world of chaos. He said, I send you as sheep among the wolves. You look at the story of Acts. Resurrection hit the church in Acts 2. And from that moment forward, it was nothing but chaos. The story of the book of Acts is chaos. You would not have enjoyed it, I don't think. Some people long for the days of the book of Acts. No. There was so much opposition and so much public strife and riots breaking out, and people forming little groups and taking vows to kill Paul, and religious authorities seeking to kill Peter, and people going to jail, and people disaffecting people's opinions, and people lying, and demon-possessed people, and all kinds of stuff. It does not look like rest if you look with your natural eyes. How do I know if someone's at rest? Is it that they're not doing anything and they're not contending for the gospel and clearing the debris of the accusations so that the truth can stand with people who are starting to get it? No, it's what is their gospel and how faithfully do they contend for it in the face of all the opposition? That's one measure, So, the whole thing where you'll see me defending, I'm not defending myself, in the sense that I need you to, I want my enemies to finally understand. I'm trying to get them to listen. Maybe they'll leave me alone if they understand my motive. No, they're not gonna. No matter what I say, they're gonna twist it. Okay? Everything I say, they're going to assume that my motive is evil, and that I'm lying, and etc., etc., etc. No pleasing them. No, it's for the sake of the ones who are starting to get the truth but are still being influenced. We have to clear the debris off those accusations. We have to keep sweeping them away. There are so many people that I see now in other circles, in the crowd with the pitchforks, so to speak, who used to be on my wall. I can pull up their comments and I can show you they were feeding, but they were babes and they weren't grounded in the truth yet, and they got carried off because of all the different accusations. They believed them. If I just say, well, I don't have to defend myself, let them believe what they want. That's the flesh. That's just another kind of sour grapes. No, we have to confirm, defend, and boldly contend for the truth. And when, the reason why, for example, there's so many New Covenant teachings on my playlist wasn't because I was trying to convince the people who oppose me, but because people were coming because of the videos they were doing and wanted to know. And they kept having to be reintroduced to the topic. And I know that there's a treasure there. And it's been slow going over the course of a year and a half. And even the people who believed me, but they took my word for it. And there's a lot of those that they just take your word for it, but they haven't searched it out themselves. They couldn't articulate it. Or when they did, you would just shake your head and go, no, that's not it, Now they are speaking quite clearly about it because they've done their own study. Or they've been saturated. We have to just keep revisiting the truth and keep sowing the truth and keep speaking the truth and keep defending the truth. And then we also highlight the absurdity of the accusations. Not to defend ourselves and our flesh and justify ourselves, but because this is what we're doing. There's some people who think that this is all just flesh. And they're in a position to see it all, and speak to it. So, like they're the spiritual ones. No. Rest means that my conscience is satisfied as far as what you think about me. I'm crucified to the world and the world to me. I've counted all that as dung. I'm seeking to be found in Christ, not having my own righteousness. I'm not answering for my sake and for the sake of my conscience because I feel guilty and I feel bad and I need you to like me and I'm doing a dance before you in religion. No, I'm satisfied because of the blood. I know I'm doing God's will. I know what I speak is the truth, and that strengthens me to keep speaking no matter what you say. And I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the sake of the truth to get it out there. And I'm going to be bullheaded about it. See, a lot of people who seem to be the nicest and talk about love and all that are still doing it in a way of dead works because they want you to think they're loving because their own conscience condemns them. Because the devil tells them you're not walking in love, and people tell them you're not walking in love. The devil loves to do that. Look at the mess you're making. Don't you know the world is watching? No, the world already hates Christ and hates the Christians. I was an atheist most of my life. I hated Christians. I thought that's what kept me from wanting anything to do with God. It was the Christians. Like Gandhi said, Jesus I don't have a problem with. It's the Christians I hate. No, the Christians can't keep someone from God. It is their own suppressing of the truth and unrighteousness. It's between them and God. And if it's a matter of their conscience, being super nice Christians doesn't fix the problem. Now, that's not to say we don't walk in love, but I think that walking in love means paying a price for the truth. Because it's only the truth that can set people free. Are you willing to lay your life down for any of it? Or when people say, well, that person's not walking in love, do you shrink back and go, man, I need to be nicer? And, there's a balance, but you get a lot of virtue signal going on in Christianity. And a lot of that is dead works manufactured from an evil conscience. And then people responding to the accusations of the enemy. And it's all used by the enemy to shut down the truth. And then if someone needs to get up and speak the truth boldly, that person is the first person to be accused of not walking in love. If you just trace the history, even of this channel, you'll see, and there's been people who've been with me the whole time. You'll see what is the first accusation they had laid at our feet. We weren't walking in love. That's where the whole new covenant came from. We didn't have a new heart. We believed only with our mind. Why? Because we weren't walking in love. And why weren't we walking in love? Because we spoke the truth without regard of men. And when we say, hey, this is maybe an accursed, has implications for the gospel, or this is even an accursed gospel. This doctrine is wrong. They'll say, well, don't you know that this person teaches that? Are you saying that person's wrong? And I'll say, I didn't even know that person teaches that because I've never heard one of their sermons or I don't listen to their messages. But they'll say, well, he attacked that person. Why? Because they want to make it about people, because they want to turn it into he's not walking in love. He doesn't love the brethren. There's people that have taken their channels down and now they go from channel to channel saying we're not walking in love. And they have the gospel right. I'll give them that. But they're all offended because they believe this virtue signaling. They got attacked first, and now they're being used to the enemy to accuse the body of Christ. Anyone who wants to contend for the gospel of not walking in love. And they really believe it. They think we should all just be quiet, and be at harmony with each other. And again, there's no way to be at peace with someone who does not believe the gospel. And there's a lot of people among us that actually don't believe the gospel. All the words have been changed to mean something else. And as we define the words, they're starting to get revealed for not believing the truth. And they're getting offended. The backloaded works thing. What is backloaded works? It means that we thought that you believed justification by faith. But it turned out you didn't mean justification by faith alone apart from works. When you said faith, you thought faith was a work. And that has a whole set of implications. That's why we say backloaded works. And you say, if you really believe the gospel, you'll have XYZ. Call it fruit inspecting. Turns out they don't believe the gospel. And on the basis of their fruit inspecting, they will deny the brethren. And the more you talk about it, the more offended they get, until they manifest, they take the way of Cain and hate the brethren. Obviously, eternal life does not abide in them. And 1 John tells their story, or they tell the story of the 1 John with their actions. They manifest it. There's no peace. Once the light comes, the darkness is exposed and people start manifesting their stuff. People say, before David Benjamin came, this community was at peace. When he came, that now there's division everywhere. No, it's not me. It's just that we've been defining terms that have been vaguely and ambiguously used, that have been a cloak for sin. Jesus said, if I had not come, they would have no cloak for their sin. But now I've come and the word is unveiled it all. And what that means, it's not that we're pointing out anybody's sin. It's as they react to the truth, they reveal in their reaction what they really believe. And it's not just me. That's a lie. I'm just the latest person that they like to attack. There's other people they attack. And they always say that person, before that person came, no. These kind of people have always been along. And there's always a new batch. And they always attack the person of that time. And they always say that before them, there wasn't a problem. And then it turns out, if you go back and look at the history, there's always been problems. And there's always been the people. We're not special. This is how it works. Okay, so, did I do this video to defend myself? No. But I just want to make it clear to the people who are listening to me, if you've been feeding from my channel, you will see me, from time to time, do defenses, polemics, arguments to defend the truth. I'm not defending myself, even though sometimes it looks like I am. And I pray that you see that if you're really into the teaching here, you understand that my motive is because I'm clearing the air for those who are actually receiving the teaching so that they can with a good conscience. I mean, honestly, there's been so many TBNs and Jim Bakkers that when people, like, there's a guy who used to be very bold on my channel and others contending for the gospel. Long typed out comments that were so good about entering rest and against lordship salvation. Well, just in the last couple months, he's flipped, okay? And he's railing against grace, and he's on the lordshipper walls, which is really sad. I don't know. He's got a very hard life, and I think some things have happened, and I just have to trust the Lord that he's in his hands. But he recently did a post about my books and saying I'm pimping Jesus and all this stuff. If I'd have seen that after knowing, okay, this guy's been faithfully contending for grace. He's been a faithful subscriber to David Benjamin for 2 years. Where is this coming from? You might go, what is David Benjamin doing? If you don't know the math, maybe he is making a fortune. You just until someone breaks it down, you don't realize he's selling books. Seriously, I'm making far less than minimum wage. I do it for my love for the word, and I do want to get it out. Not to sell millions of copies. I don't want to be a best-selling author or anything like that. But there's people who don't listen to the YouTube channel, and they won't read an ebook, and by the way, those are free, who, if you hand them a real book, they'll sit down and read it. And there's truth in there. And there's nothing more satisfying to me than when I hear someone speaking the truth and I know that it went out from us. And yet I don't even know who they are. I've seen that happen now. I'm seeing little channels pop up, and I'm also seeing emails and stuff and comments of people that I've never seen before who are speaking a language, and I know where they got it. It's Pauline, and I don't mean they got our language. I mean Paul. It's the Pauline ministry. It's the New Testament ministry. And right now, I don't know of. I'm sure there's other people laboring. See, that's where God keeps us in our own field. I don't know who else is out there saying exactly the same things. I'm sure there are. But it's very gratifying to see it go out. But I happen to know that some of these, because of the way I found out who, I see them, I know they're connected to people who've been listening to us. That means they got a hold of our stuff. It's good. And then you see people listening to them and saying, oh, I get it, that there's something in you that wants the word to go out. And there's something in the devil that does not want the word to go out. And he loves to use religious flesh and jealousy and ambition to try to shut it down through people's accusations and evil surmisings. So, that's what this is about. And I hope that makes that clear. That's all I wanted to say about that this morning. Rest is not doing anything. Rest is the freedom to, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living God. What does that mean? It brings me out of people-pleasing religion and trying to figure out how I'm pleasing to God. Brings me into rest, where I know I'm pleasing to God, and frees me to serve the living God. And no, it doesn't put me to work in the sense of now I got to do something for God. No, it's that the living God animates me with praise and thanksgiving, and I start magnifying Christ. Whatever that looks like, For me, it's this channel and books. For now. There's other ways too, I guess. The point is it's full of the fragrance of Christ. And in my life, my heart has thanksgiving and I've got rest. Sometimes I get annoyed. Sometimes I'm upset at what I see people doing. Absolutely. Paul was grieved. He had sorrow upon sorrow. We are human. But inwardly, I'm not thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe God doesn't love me. Maybe I'm not accepted in the beloved. I'm solidly established in the gospel. That's rest. And then every day we have to enter that rest, because if I just ignore that truth and let it slip, which is the danger in Hebrews, neglecting so great a salvation, the devil can come in and lie, get you back into the dance. Thankfully, the Lord is our high priest, and he is here interceding in us. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. I could go on and on and on. I want to do an Ephesians study of the next part of Ephesians this weekend. Just depends. When my family's home, it's a little harder. Right now, they're out at a craft fair, and I didn't want to go. So that gave me some freedom to do a message. All right, talk to you later.